All right, welcome back, you guys. As you can tell, today looks a little bit different. It's just my husband and I here at the table, but we're just going to be a little casual. We're going to just have a conversation. And
just kind of jump into a lot of different things
Yeah.
in a lot of different places.
Yes. So it may feel a little bit over here, over there, but our hope is that it all ties together.
So with that being said, we are talking about sexual intimacy today. And so if you have little ears around, you may want to wait a little while before you listen so that they're not in earshot. Not that we're going to say anything inappropriate,
Right.
but we are going to be clear. And we're going to talk about some things that we feel like are really going to be beneficial for couples.
Yeah. So I think we should talk about some things that you and I talk about when we do premarital counseling.
Yep.
Some things that we talk about when we do marriage counseling. We will not be using names here.
Right.
You know, we
For
will
sure.
not be doing any of that. But I think it's important, since we've been in ministry for a while. We worked with students for a long time. We work with young adults. So I think we've seen the ups and the downs of marriages. And
Yeah,
so I
for
think
sure.
today we're just going to talk about some of those things. We're also going to talk about some of our lived experiences, conversations that we've had, maybe some struggles and hurdles that we have. But it's just going to
Sure.
kind of be a mix of everything.
Yeah.
So
So like not specifically about our sex life, just to be clear. This
Thank
is
you.
about
Yes.
our experience
it is.
with people and
Yeah.
pastoring and the
Yeah.
good, the bad, and the ugly. you know.
Absolutely. So, all right, you ready?
Send it.
Okay, so talking about thinking through some couples that we have done premarital counseling with. I know
Right.
you mentioned in your sermon on Sunday about our sweet girl who was really struggling. I remember being at dinner with her and her saying, for so many years I was taught no, 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 no. And eventually that trains your brain, which is a good thing, right? But also I think we probably don't do a good enough job telling our kids or
Yeah.
even our young adults that sex is good. You hit all these things in your sermon, but as we break it down, I remember sitting with her and her real struggle
Yeah,
was,
for sure.
when I say I do, that light switch does not just flip on.
Right.
And so I think it's a real conversation that we need to have. And I know we've done that in student ministry. Pastor Mike does that in student ministry. I've seen it begin to be a part of culture. Like
Actually,
talking.
I do that for Pastor Mike in student ministry.
Yeah.
But yeah. I think that it's a pastoral conversation.
Yeah.
You just don't have a lot of churches that are really dealing with. You do have some. You really do have some, and they do an excellent job. And there are so many good Christian resources out there. You do have a lot that do a really good job, but you have some that treat sex like the plague.
Right.
And that sends a message. Sometimes when you don't say something, it's saying something.
Yeah, well,
you know?
and even you think about it in parenting, we do that
Yeah.
with our kids because we don't want them doing those things. So it's almost like we want to enact a fear factor in a way, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard to teach it even in our homes in a way that sex is good. Like this is from God.
Right.
And so we were talking earlier, I think it's interesting that our son has been hearing these. Of course, we have kids that sit underneath your teaching every Sunday. And so it's very interesting to me that they hear these things and it's not foreign to them.
Yeah.
It's not embarrassing. It's not awkward. So I think pastorally, yes, it needs to be talked about, but probably in our homes as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think again, it's the fear factor.
Yeah.
Parents are so afraid of their kids making the mistakes that they made, or getting pregnant, at a young age, or whatever the case is.
Or just even the emotional trauma attached to it.
Yeah, for sure.
When you're young, you don't understand what you like
Absolutely.
all the things that surround that. So
Yeah. And I think instead of dealing with what needs to be dealt with, it's kind of banished, it's treated like a leper. And I think that's a mistake. I really do. And I know it's a hard conversation. I mean, we've done it,
Yeah.
But it's difficult, it's awkward, but it's so necessary. And that's part of the responsibility of parenting.
It is. So along that line, I think it's very important in our homes, like our kids can tell if we have a good relationship or not. They may not understand the words that we have a good intimate relationship, but I think it comes from an overflow of that.
Yes.
So like when we're in the home or like we're in the kitchen and you walk by and like, there's just a pat or a touch or whatever, I think that's an overflow from a good intimate relationship, if that makes sense. So in our kids, again, they may not be able to put words to it, but they're watching.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And you want, again, I've said it 1,000 times, I'll say it till the day that I die. The best thing you can give your children is the display of a healthy marriage.
Absolutely.
And all of these types, there are so many things involved. It's like I said yesterday with the 3 chords. There's a covenant commitment, like I am committed to this till death do us part. Yeah. There's the friendship factor, which to me is one of the most essential components there. But then you have the sexual love, and all those they're all combined, and they overflow. And our children, they pick up on things that we don't realize they pick up on.
Right.
You know?
And it doesn't mean you have to be inappropriate.
Yeah.
You don't have to like make out in front of your kids. If you want to,
Right.
I mean, whatever.
That's
But you
weird,
don't
bro.
have to
Yeah.
do those sorts of things for your children to pick up on the health of your marriage. So I think it goes back to, okay, is your marriage healthy in that regard?
Yeah.
So
And so, the saying, sometimes it's not always what's taught, it's what's caught.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, generally speaking, but there are some things with our kids especially that need to be caught and taught.
absolutely.
So we can't just assume that, well, we're healthy, so they're going to grow up to understand all that there is to know about intimacy. That doesn't translate. And so we've got to give them the display of healthy marriage, but also have the conversations with them.
Yeah.
And it's tough, but again, it's necessary.
Right. And if you go back a step further, it's going to be difficult to show a healthy marriage if you actually don't have one.
Yeah, that's
so
right. That's right.
I think there's some things we can dive into and talk about today that help that to, you don't want to fake it. I mean, there are sometimes you just do the things because you have to do it. But those are one of the things your kids are going to tell if you're not being sincere.
Sure.
So I think we can talk about some ways today, like, okay, let's do some checkpoints along the way.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it.
So we have been married now 26 years.
26.
So
Quarter of a century, dude.
Quarter of a century. We're so old. It's fine. We've grown old together, right? So we've raised each other.
Older.
Yeah. It's okay. So I feel like not only have we changed as people, but even our relationship in regards to sexual intimacy has changed. And it's because, again, when we got married, we were very young, had been raised in the culture of no, no, no.
Yep.
And so, again, the shame factor, all the things. So as we stepped into marriage, I think it probably, we had a rough first couple of years, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Because, I mean, all the factors, right? We're trying to figure each other out. We really don't know who we are yet.
I'm 19,
all the things.
you're 20.
Right. So, like, hormones
lot.
are definitely raging. And again, like, you want chemistry, right?
Yeah.
Like, as we tell people, like, it's okay to fight the chemistry. You actually want that. Like,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah,
not
yeah,
attracted to someone you're in a relationship with or about to get married to, there's probably a problem.
Yeah.
But it's very true that once you get married and like life happens,
Yep,
it's
sure.
very easy when you're paying bills, when you have to go to work and you're not on a honeymoon, all the things. It's really hard to create natural, organic intimacy.
Yeah. For
You
sure.
have to work at it. You have to fight for it.
Yep.
So I think we can talk a little bit about like some things conversations that we had or things that we did. I mean, we don't have to leave that in here. I'm just saying, you know what I mean? Like, it was rough.
So I think number one, part of the problem is we have allowed the world to infiltrate our minds so much. And so there really is like this fantasy factor when it comes to sexual relationships. And, especially when you're young, you feel like, well, everything should be what I see on Insta, or everything should, be a reflection of, the show or whatever the case is.
If there are not fireworks every time that I walk by you, something's wrong.
Right. And that's lies. Like, that's nothing but lies. And even the older you get, that it can stick with you, if you're not careful.
Right.
And so I think the younger you are, you're more vulnerable to that stuff. Yeah. But sexual intimacy is not just like always an explosion.
Right.
Like you said, there is an art to it.
Yeah.
There is work that has to be done. There's effort that's needed. And I think part of the struggle with marriages is that people are only willing to work for so long before they expect the fireworks.
Right.
And if they put in so much effort and they're still not experiencing that, there's this instinct to kind of check out and just be like, well, I did my best, and it just didn't happen. The fact is that it's got to be fought for and worked for through every single seaon of marriage, till death do you part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gray hair's coming. Wrinkles are coming.
Sure.
Like, I mean, I know in jest, but I mean, in some reality that, for men, it doesn't take a lot to want to step into intimacy. But I mean, the reality is, like, we're all going to change. Our bodies are going to change.
Sure.
So even what you're attracted to at 25 and married, that person is going to look different at 40.
For sure.
And so you have to be in it to win it, and you have to work for it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So I've heard the thing where, a husband wakes up and he's working all day long to make sure that at night she feels loved, so the intimacy happens, right? So let's talk about that for a minute. Because I think motives matter.
Yes.
And I think that I don't know that it's good or bad or ugly or indifferent, but like thinking that a man is always has that on his mind as the intent at the end of the day.
Right.
I think that's probably giving you guys a wrong motive. Because in my mind, when we were in our younger years, I thought, well, he's only doing the dishes because that's what he wants. Or if you brought me home flowers, it wasn't because you actually wanted to bring me flowers. It's because you wanted something.
Right.
And so I had to shift my mindset to, no, this is the way he's serving me. Now, there may be something on the back end of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
There may be a reward waiting, but that was not the motive, or that was not the intent. It could have been.
And sometimes, so that's where it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, right.
Because sometimes it is the motive. And I would say this, I don't always think that's a bad motive.
Yeah.
It can be abused.
Yeah.
It can be obsessive. It can be the only thing that you're focused on is sex at the end of the day. But in reality, in my heart, like that motive may have been there a lot of times.
Yeah.
But the underlying current of those types of actions, I'm like, I want to love you.
Right.
I want you to know I value you. I want to serve you. And so it is kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
You know, motives can be good. They can be bad. But I always don't think that, you know, having that in your mind is a bad thing.
Right.
But I think that it cannot always be the most important thing. The most important thing, do I love your soul?
Yeah.
You know, I love your body, but do I love your soul?
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that I'm doing a lot of things to love your soul so that later I can love your body. And that's not always a bad thing.
It kind of reminds me of like the discipline, even with the Lord. So like sometimes we read the word because it's a discipline and it brings us closer to the Lord. So even if that's I'm doing this out of a discipline, and I might have thought this was the end thing, but in time, it's going to be out of, I'm growing closer to you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it begins, Pastor Chitty used to always say this, your spiritual life is a series of steps. It begins with discipline.
Yeah.
It's the rawest form of intimacy. Just discipline, doing it, whether you feel like it or not, you're just going to serve, you're going to do. But over time, that becomes a type of devotion, right? And it becomes a desire. Yeah. And so it's not, you know, it becomes, well, I'm doing the dishes just, you know, so I can get what I want, or I'm doing the dishes because I love her, even though I don't feel like it today. And then at a certain point, it becomes, man, I just love her.
Right.
Like, I don't want her to have to deal with this later, so I'm going to go ahead and do with this. Yeah. And then later it's like, when I see the light in your eyes, I'm like, man, I want to keep doing this because I like seeing the life in her.
Yeah. So I think those are some small habits that you can do to provoke intimacy, but it is out of serving your spouse.
Yeah.
So if you're struggling with, we don't really have a good sex life right now, like go backwards. Like don't start here and be going, okay, well, we're not sleeping together, or like we have to schedule sex or whatever it might be, and just step back and go, okay, what can I do back here that are 5 steps back that's going to help this up here? But right now let's focus on this. Yeah. And it may be taking the garbage out, or it may be picking the kids up when you said you were going to pick them up, or, you know, stopping by the grocery store so she doesn't have to go. I mean, whatever it is, like they're going to know their spouse better than anybody else. But I think it's not always about that. It's not actually about that. You have to step back a little bit.
Yeah. It comes to, you know, it's the Philippians 2 verse, have the same mind that Christ had. He emptied himself. He took on the form of a servant. Yeah. And so I agree with you. I love the taking the step back and moving forward. Now, you may have to schedule it. Right. You may have to schedule sex and then work your way backwards. Yeah. And that's just part of it.
Absolutely.
But the fact is that you want the motive of your heart. I love this person.
Yeah.
I love this person. Even if I don't like them right now, I'm committed.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to make this work.
Okay. So let's talk about some ways to normalize sexual intimacy. Okay. So for us, that means that sometimes we're laughing about things. Now, not laughing at each other.
Right. Okay. Right. For sure. Thank God.
Don't do that.
Thank God.
Okay. Sorry. We're not going unhinged here, but I remember hearing someone say that on their honeymoon, that someone had told them to literally like jump in the shower and just start laughing. Not laughing at each other, but literally to take away the awkwardness of it. And I thought, that's actually quite brilliant, but you got to be clear, I'm not laughing at you.
Right.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I said this, but like they were like, make it completely dark. Like just to kind of set the tone and to set the mood. So anyway, I thought that was funny. And I was like, hey, that could actually work. Yeah. I'm not breaking down.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. Because being naked, so key in Genesis 1. Yeah. They were naked and felt no shame. Yeah. Why did God include that?
Yeah.
In the narrative, why did he put that in there?
Yeah.
It's because before the fall, our nakedness, there was no shame in it. But now there is a vulnerability because we live in a fallen world. Yeah. And so there is shame attached, right? And so this is why instinctively, when you get out of the shower, you immediately grab a towel. Even if your child who's 2 walks in, or your spouse walks in, you cover yourself. There is a weird shame that should not be there, but it's there.
Yeah.
And so we, as husband and wife, we got to kind of push through that, that vulnerability, that embarrassment, or whatever the case is. Because the fact is this, I'm speaking for husbands right now.
Okay.
Husbands, when they look at their wife and she is naked, there is not a shame element in that.
Yeah.
They are awestruck.
Yeah.
And that's the way that God has wired them.
Right.
That is not perversion. That's purity.
Right.
That's purity for the marriage relationship.
Yes.
But it's funny because I do think that women are a little more reserved.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And I'm sure there are layers to that,
Yeah.
but the perfection culture has just caused the woman's mindset to already have not only the shame of like nakedness, but the shame of I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And so why would he ever think that about me? Let me cover.
Yeah.
Let me do that. So I would.
Whereas dudes are just like running around naked. They're like, where's she at?
Okay. Modesty's okay
Not me.
too.
I'm just...
And I will say that too. Like I was raised in a very modest home, and so like we just didn't. It's so interesting. There are conversations where it's like, is your home just one where people do like it's just normal? And I was raised in a very modest home, so we didn't do that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And innately, if you're a modest person, that's totally fine. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there is a level of intimacy that comes with just being with each other. Again, the safe space that's here, and so that's just one way to do that. But another way is. We talk about this in our premarital counseling as well, and we tell the couples to have like inside jokes with each other, or to have like code words with each other. So do you want to share like anything about that?
Like ours? I don't want people stealing our stuff. What are you talking about? They're too good.
Oh my
goodness. I'm kidding. I think so much about sexual intimacy is letting walls fall.
Yeah.
And I think when you can laugh, it is a huge, like it just breaks down barriers.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think like just being able to laugh at each other. Again, you got to be cautious when you laugh, okay? And you're not laughing at each other, you're laughing with each other.
Yeah.
And, when you're in bed together and something goes weird or whatever, the ability, it's happened, dude. I mean, it's happened. And the ability just to laugh and to say, I'm an idiot, or that's wild, or how did we get over here, or whatever the case is. You know what I mean?
Right.
The ability to laugh. And I think that also translates outside of the bedroom.
Yeah.
I think it translates into life in general. I want to have fun. I want life to be filled with joy. I want to laugh loud in our house with our kids. But I do think even in our friendship, I don't want it to always be so serious.
Yeah.
I don't want to always be talking about the mortgage. I don't want to always be talking about frustrations with work or the kids. Man, I want to enjoy life. That's where the porch thing comes in to play. And I just want to be with you. Yeah. And I think if we can have that friendship element, okay, again, data shows it. When your friendship is stronger, when you know that you can laugh, when you're not always dead serious, when your friendship is alive, your sex life's better. Yeah. It just is, dude.
Yeah. I'll say this and then we can talk about a little more serious stuff. But one of our girls this morning was literally telling me about you learning to braid those ropes. And she's like, I just told him to twist them like we do and twist in my hair. And he was like, that's not strong enough. So it was really cool to me. I was like, it's not. I was like, it takes the 3. So it takes all aspects of that. So I got to talk about it with her, but I was like, it makes sense. Like you could have just twisted them. That would have been great. Yeah. But it's not the same as when 3 are braided together.
Okay, let me give a 30-second story. So in first service yesterday, I did not technically braided. I just wrapped them together. Okay. Well, when I let it go, it fell apart. Okay. And so I felt like I busted the whole illustration.
No, that's actually perfect. Like it shows it wasn't together.
Touche. See, man, that's why you need to be preaching more.
No, I was just out of town. I wasn't there to braid it for you.
So
I felt bad.
In between services, shout out to Mr. Bill. Bill Simpson is my security detail on Sunday mornings during first service. He took me backstage. And he was like, I'm going to teach you how to braid. And I kept saying, Mr. Bill, I got 20 minutes before the next service. There's no way I can figure this out. Yeah. He stood there and he said, no, you can figure this out. Let me show you.
That's awesome.
We stood there for 20 minutes and he taught me how to braid in between services. So shout out to Mr. Bill.
Shout out Mr. Bill, because we have 3 girls in the house. Now someone knows how to braid.
See, and somebody told me today in staff meeting, they were like, don't let Joy know that you know how to braid.
I was out of town, but I watched it. And I was like, he's doing really good. So, yes, that's awesome. But it was really cool when she said that. She was like, it wouldn't, twist and it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get talking about, just kind of pulling some of it together. Let's talk a little more serious about like boundaries then. She's about laughing in the bedroom, like breaking down some walls. So let's talk about, I think it's a common question that we do get, especially premarital, because they haven't stepped into this world yet, right? Of marital intimacy. So boundaries. So I know we're pretty open about how we talk to people about like boundaries inside of marriage. So I think it's important to talk about.
Yeah. So you're talking about boundaries inside marriage, not before.
Yes.
Okay. So inside of marriage.
Yes.
I think there's a lot that could go into this. Yeah. I think that there are more and more, it seems to me, that Christians are having a lot more questions about what is permissible. And it's not just in sexual relationship. It's about everything. But it definitely is in sexual relationship. I don't want to give too much of this away because we're going to talk about it in the panel in a couple of weeks. Okay. Shameless plug.
Okay.
But I will say this, that there are definitely some things that are forbidden in Scripture. Yes. There are definitely, even for married people, there are definitely some things that are forbidden. But there are probably more things that are permissible and even encouraged in Scripture than what most Christian couples realize. Like read the Song of Solomon. A lot of that seems like allegory, but a lot of it's not.
Right.
It's like what they were doing.
Right.
And the blessing of God was on their relationship.
Yeah. So I think a valid thing, again, not only in premarital counseling, but like even amongst friend groups throughout the years. We've not only been at this church, but other churches. I've had friends all over. And kind of a common question is, even though it's permissible and even though it's in the Bible, am I required to do that?
Right.
And that is, I think, out of a heart of the people I'm speaking about, it's wanting to please their husband.
Right.
And so, but they're thinking, am I doing something wrong by not doing all that is allowed?
Right. I do not think that's accurate. I think that a husband who loves his wife, though he may desire certain things, he needs to communicate those things. Yeah. And they need to have a conversation. He cannot demand those things, right? Because then it transitions from a sexual need to a sexual want. And there's a difference between those
or
things. Or a demand. Yeah. And Christian men, we're not called to lead in that way. So he needs to communicate his desires. What does he want to try? Like, what does he want to give a go? But as a Christian wife, and this goes the other way too.
Right.
Like,
right.
like
yes. I'm just speaking from my side of the experience.
For sure. But there, there's some dudes that are like, I don't feel safe doing that. Like, what do they call a safe word? What's our safe word?
Yes.
But I'll say that there is not a requirement to fulfill every desire, because some things are just buck weird.
Right.
Okay. Some things are not weird. Yeah. They're even described in Scripture. Oral sex is described in Scripture. But if one of the parties that violates their conscience, or they're just not comfortable, or whatever the case is, though that may be frustrating, you as the spouse, you got to honor it. And you just got to be like, well, maybe at some point they'll come around, and maybe they won't.
Right.
But that should not affect your love for that person, because they're still meeting your sexual need, just maybe not in the way you want them to.
Yeah, that's good.
And that can be difficult to hear, because again, especially for men, it can be difficult to hear, because again, the number one fear for all men is rejection. Yeah. And even though the wife is not saying, I don't reject you, I reject that thing.
Right.
Sometimes it can feel like you're rejecting me.
Absolutely.
And we've got to grow up out of that. We've got to be able to delineate the two things, but it all comes from combo.
Absolutely. Again, I think communication is probably the foundation of that. And those aren't easy conversations to have. No. Now, typically, again, as we're talking to these young couples, it's okay, right when you get married, y'all should be having these conversations. But the reality is there are couples that have been married 10, 20, 30 years who have never really had the conversation.
Right.
And so I would say, just to tell people, it's okay to talk, number one, to talk about those things. Yeah. But number two, you should be talking about those things.
For sure.
Because the last thing that you want to do is live in frustration if something isn't being met. But on the other side of it, there can be unspoken expectations from either person. Again, I know we're stereotyping here, but I'm just only talking out of our lived experience and counseling. But I think that not talking about it is just unfair in a lot of ways to both parties.
Yeah, for sure. But we don't talk about it out of self-preservation.
Right.
It's too tender. Yeah. It's too vulnerable. Yeah.
Or she might think I'm crazy or weird
or perverted or whatever the case is.
Yes.
But the fact is, it's more out of self-preservation, and so there's a fear there. But man, this is the closest person you will ever live. You will never live closer to another soul.
Yeah.
The way that spiritually you're united in Christ, there's not another person.
Yeah.
And so my encouragement is, as husbands and wives have those conversations, that it's got to be done in the right way.
Yes.
Say the right thing in the right way at the right time.
Probably not while you're stepping into the bedroom at 10 o'clock at night.
Definitely not while you're in the act.
Right.
Hey,
yes.
let's try this.
Yes.
And it's like shut down, Cindy.
Yes.
But I'm saying, like, you got to have the conversation, but you got to make sure it's at the right time.
Yeah.
But even like a disclaimer going into that. Listen, I want to share my heart. I don't want this to be weird.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be awkward. I don't want this to draw a wedge, and I don't want you to think I'm crazy. But I also don't want to feel rejected.
Right.
And so please just hear me.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't even have to be about, I know we were joking saying technique and stuff like that, but it can just be about frequency.
Yeah.
It can be about, man, I'm just not really satisfied with like the frequency.
I know, babe. I'm working. I'm just kidding.
Oh Lord, help us.
No, you're right though.
Yeah.
It can, a number of things.
Yes.
Frequency.
Yeah.
Location. Like I said yesterday, if there are unique situations in your life, you need to be talking about those things.
Right.
Specific things, desires, all that. You need to be talking frustrations.
Yeah.
You need to talk about those frustrations.
Yes.
Typically what happens, instead of communicating frustrations about intimacy, shut down.
Yeah. Yep.
Instead of having the combo.
Yeah.
And what we've got to realize is that the conversation, like you said, is the bedrock.
Yeah.
It's the bedrock of a healthy sex life.
Yeah. And the more you talk about it, the easier it gets.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
so just start.
Yeah, it's like anything. Once
Fumble through it, but just do it.
Yeah, and we have fumbled through it.
We have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been good.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, me being a female, and you have, of course, your own journeys as a male, but like I've gone through having babies. Yeah. I've gone through also, I'm not there yet, but in the next few years, I'm sure we'll hit this perimenopause thing everyone's talking about.
Right.
But we've also moved from state to state from our family, like all these things. And even though that has nothing directly tied to intimacy, it affects our hormones in all sort of wacky ways, right? So I think there are ebbs and flows that sometimes we don't give credit to. And I know that can, again, cause undue frustrations. Yeah. But I think that there's a value to understanding that seasons of life are going to change. And just because you may be in a hard season right now and it may not be all that you would want it to be, that it may just be a season. Yeah. And the fight that we were talking about earlier of just staying in it, like even regardless of if you're getting sex out of it, you may not right now, but just stay in it.
Yeah. The Apostle Peter says this. He says to husbands, dwell with your wife with understanding, meaning understand your spouse. Yeah. Like understand like she is different than you, dude. But I think it goes without being said that Peter would likely say the same thing to wives. Wives, dwell with your husband with the understanding. Yeah. Understand that his sexual needs are probably going to be higher than yours. Right. But husbands, understand that there are going to be times where her sexual needs are non-existent, dude. And like understand her, understand the ebb and flow of life. Yeah. But we are pretty quick to get frustrated. Yeah. And I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure a lot of men. Yeah. But when we don't strive to understand, it's easy to feel rejected. It's easy to feel frustrated. Yeah. It's easy.
Yeah. So, for example, there was a few seasons, we walked through infertility. Yeah. And that came with it not just not being able to get pregnant, but that came with lots of doctor's appointments, which came with financial burdens. But then it also came with medications I was taking. Yeah. It was the mental game of my body is broken. And so there are so many layers I think we don't give credit to. Yeah. And so you had to understand that I was going through something, and my desire was going to be pretty low in that season. Yeah, yeah. But I also had to understand that there is still a need that physically has to be met. Yeah. You have to have that met. So there was the give and take. Yeah. And I think that happens more often than we realize, and that people are willing to step into the give and take.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful because I feel like you fought for it. Like our relationship, number one, but even for our intimacy every day, even though your body was all out of whack and all of this stuff going on, I still felt like you kept your head in the game. And I was so grateful for that. But again, it's this idea of understanding. And I think, so this is what happens and again, this is for most men, maybe with women. when we choose not to understand, or when we don't lean into understanding, what we begin to do is we begin to make up narratives in our head
Yes.
that probably do not exist.
Yes.
Right. And so we need to think, well, maybe she's looking elsewhere, or maybe I'm not as attractive to her, or maybe I'm not, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
We begin to do these things when it's like, nah, bro, she's just like she just had a miscarriage a
Right.
month ago,
Right.
and she's still in recovery mode.
Right. Right.
But most men, especially when you don't think
Yes.
that way.
Yes. One, on the flip side, as women, we can think, well, that's all he's thinking about.
Right,
That's
right.
all he wants from me. And then the narrative is, well, does he even love me? Or
Yeah.
does he just love
Yeah.
sex? Or
Right.
is that, all
Right.
the things? And so I think the enemy can super easily get a
All the
foothold
time.
into this, because again, vulnerability is massive in this regard. And so the enemy knows it. It's very easy for him to just sneak a little thing in there. And you talk about one thought turning into 10,
Yeah.
and you're down a rabbit hole.
Right. Right. And especially you dwell on those things. So again, it's this idea, understand your spouse. And I think part of understanding your spouse is, not only what they're going through, but how men and women are wired differently. We're in so many ways, we're so alike. In so many ways, we're so different,
Right.
And early on, I think you talked about this idea of the cycle.
The ebb and flow.
The ebb and flow. There's
Yeah.
a cycle in every marriage relationship. And the idea is kind of this, I may butcher it, so correct me.
I'll fix it.
But
if
the
you do.
idea is that in order for a man to want to fill the emotional needs of his wife, physical intimacy spurs him towards
Right.
that. Like a physical need met
Yeah.
makes me want to serve you emotionally.
Correct. Yeah.
The opposite is true for
Yeah.
most women. This is general in general. Okay. So what that means is that for most women, in order for them to desire you physically, they need the emotional love and service first. And so it's this weird, opposite thing.
Yes.
But there's this cycle. And I remember one time us having a conversation where you said, well, somebody's got to restart the cycle.
Yeah.
Because right now we're at an impasse.
Yeah.
I don't want to serve you physically. You don't want to serve me emotionally. Somebody's got to restart the cycle.
Yeah.
And when you do restart the cycle, it is a good
Right.
ebb and flow.
So someone has to call chicken and be
That's
like, I'm gonna hit the reset button.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
and that again.
I'm going to choose to be the servant.
Right.
I'm going to choose that.
Yes.
And again, I think, if we're not careful, it's this whole idea of, well, how long do I put forth that effort before she starts meeting my needs? How long do I put forth that effort before he starts fulfilling my needs?
Yeah.
And the fact is, you never stop.
Yeah.
It's taking on the form of a servant.
Yes.
And you just serve. Well, what if they don't meet my needs? You're not accountable for that.
That's right.
You are accountable before the living God to meet the needs of your spouse.
And that never is going to end.
It never ends.
Those two things are going to be cyclical for the entirety
Yeah.
of your life, of your marriage.
Yeah. And so as much as I believe the cycle
Yeah.
and we kind of live in that, I think we all kind of live in that.
Yeah.
I also think that we live in a world that demands reciprocation.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's the whole idea of a wife saying, well, I'll submit to my husband when he loves me as Christ loved the church. And I look and I say, you are disobeying God. I understand he should love you as Christ loved the church, but you have no control over that.
Right.
Your responsibility is to serve him, is to submit to him the way that the church submits to Christ. He will stand before the living God,
That's right.
but you will also.
Yeah.
And so I think if we're not careful, it can be like, well, I washed the dishes and I sat down and I talked through, all of her feelings and I did this and I did that. And we still haven't had sex in 4 days, kind of thing like that. It's like, again, it's motive. You do these things to build the relationship, but there's also an expectation. That's not always bad.
Right.
We just got to be careful. Am I
Right.
making sense?
Absolutely.
We've got to be
Absolutely.
careful about expecting the
Yes.
reciprocation.
Yeah. There's a tension and there's
Yeah.
a balance to it all. And I
Yeah.
think you have to live in that. So, but if you're fighting for it, typically you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not just giving in to one or the other, cares
good.
nothing about me, or that's all I care about, then you're in the tension.
That's good.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Stay somewhere in the tension. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about initiation.
Okay.
Let's talk about non-sexual touch. Let's talk about sexual touch.
Yeah.
I know I've said this a couple of times, but in general, men initiate more sexual contact.
Yes.
and we need to initiate more non-sexual contact.
I would agree.
At the same time, women in general need to initiate more sexual contact, not just non-sexual contact.
I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree. And I think as a woman, thinking of men who, again, are conquerors, and like that's just more of a, I mean, not you guys aren't thinking we're a quest, but that's just the way that the Lord wired your brains. And so, we can just think, well, that's kind of his role, or that's kind of his job. And we don't have to do that. And I mean, for the majority of the time, I mean, sure, great. But I think we don't realize as women what it does to your souls when there is an initiation. And that does not mean like walking in and jumping bones. That can mean like walking in and just like touching on the hand or whatever. That is still like, it may be non-sexual, but there's still there is an affirmation physical aspect to it. There really is. Yeah. So I think it's very undervalued in the women's mind of how much it means to their husband. And it's not just sexual. Right. I mean, for me, when you give physical touch or words of affirmation or whatever the case is, or you communicate in some way, I trust you with this big decision, I trust you, or whatever, or I feel I know you're going to take care of us, whatever the case is. Dude, there's something in my soul that comes alive. And I feel like in that moment, you're calling out the king. Right. And in that moment, I'm like, well, I don't feel like I can take care of you, but my God, I'm going to die trying. Right, you know what I'm saying? So and especially because knowing love languages, that's not one of my love languages. Yeah. Words of affirmation and physical touch aren't at the top of my list. And so to do that, that I'm not like fighting to do that. It's not like a burden to do it, but it's not natural for me. It's you choosing. Yes. Though. Yeah, yes. Because words of affirmation are very much at the top of my list. Physical touch is, somewhere in the middle, the lower part. Yeah. But the fact is that I know that you're making the effort. Right. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about sexual contact. Well, let's stick with non-sexual touch here for a second. And let me just say that I feel like in my experience, the more that I am conscious to touch you in a way that's non-sexual throughout the years. Again, maybe this just comes with age or experience, but I feel like you become more sexually alive during those seasons when I'm very intentional about that. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like that, but I feel closer to you. Yeah. Because I just feel like, man, I don't know if it settles something in my soul that, yeah, I don't just love her for her body. Right. And I don't just love her I love her soul. Yeah. And it does something to settle inside of me that, man, I care for her so deeply. Yeah. But again, it's that covenant, that friendship that awakens the sexual love. Yeah. You got any thoughts about non-sexual touch? So I think just like we were talking earlier, like our kids can tell when we're faking it. Right. I think in regards to non-sexual touch that women especially can tell if like you're faking it. Like if you're doing that just again out of the intent of a motive of getting something out of it, which again, there's value if you don't do that on the regular. I mean, don't be inauthentic. Sure. Like there's a difference even in this is not natural for me. It doesn't feel normal, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right. And so, because not all men are wired that way. Not all women are wired that way. So yeah. Anyway. Okay. So let's talk for a second about sexual touch and initiation. Yeah. From a male perspective, I mentioned this before, we can be grabby. Yeah. Okay. And I think that as men, we it's not really that serious in the moment. Yeah. It's more of a joke type thing, or it's more of like, it's touching the fence. Like, how bad is this going to go well? Is this not going to go well? We're kind of testing the boundaries there. Yeah. And I think sometimes a wife responds playfully or smiles or whatever the case is. Yeah. That's a cue. That's like a social cue. Right. But I think there is a line where it becomes annoying. Right. Okay. Right. And so I think that as men, we gotta do better with reading our wives. Yeah. And understanding like there's a right time and not a right time. And absolutely. Read the room. We use that in our family for all sorts of things. And it applies here too. And I would say, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like if you walk by and just you. I don't know. One of our little ones, she walks around and just smacks. She does and smacks our behind. So, that for instance, so if you do that, and it might annoy me because it's 5 times that day. But you let 5 days go by and you walked by me and you hadn't smacked my rear. I'm thinking, what is happening? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think there's definitely.
Women are so simple to understand.
Yeah. Listen, we don't always understand ourselves,
Right.
okay?
I get it. No, what you're saying makes sense.
Yeah. So I think there's a balance there, but definitely read the room. Like if she's had a terrible day and been with the kids all day, or maybe a terrible day at work and everything blew up and you come in and you just put your hands on her, that was not the moment.
Yeah,
and if she does respond maybe and pops off, don't always take it personally. I mean, it may be
it's
personal.
Hard. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
Again, it's almost like, I mean, you're playing Russian roulette all
Right,
the time,
right.
but isn't that the way of life in general?
That's the way we want to live, right on the edge.
Right? Yeah. So I say just definitely read the room, but also know it's not always about you. And we have gotten to a place where in the last few years we've been able, and we had to learn this. Like it does come, I think, with age and maturity, but also with each other and being comfortable. But like if you're in a mood, I can say, "Are you okay?" Or you'll ask me, and I'm like, "It's actually not about you."
Yeah.
And so understanding that, like, I'm having some things happening over here, and it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Now then, you're like, "Well, what is it then?" You know what I mean? But that's just the nature of it.
But it's also good to know up front. Like, this isn't about me.
Absolutely.
So I can lean in.
Or sometimes it's just, I'm having a bad day, like, and I don't feel comfortable in my skin is what I use. Like, I just don't, I feel itchy in my skin and I don't know why. And there's not always a reason.
And I have those days.
Absolutely. You got to think, we're living in a broken world, hormones, all the things, like, all, so I think being able to communicate and to being able to say those things, and that way it's not personal, but also that's a way of reading the room too, of like, okay, I'm not going to actually go and touch her right now. I'm not going to, and even playing, like, I'm not going to do that.
So if you were talking to a couple of hundred, wives right now, which you are, what would you say about that?
I would say that if we understood the power of what initiation is, and that can be abused as well.
Absolutely.
But if we understood the positive and the life that it brings and speaks when you do initiate, you would probably do it more often.
Wow.
And I even think of it this way. I am the only person, like, again, you got 100 cards a few weeks ago, and I might be the only one who speaks to you that it lights your soul up. But there's not 100 people who can come in and try to meet your sexual needs.
Right.
I am the only person who holds that role. Yeah. And I would even go further and say it doesn't matter if you've had past sexual relationships or if whatever that is, if you are in a covenant marriage, there is only one person who's going to satisfy the way that they're supposed to, because it is true covenant. It's a bond. And so I think as women, if we understood that role to a deep level of, it is our honor and it is our privilege to be able to serve our husband in that way, then we would flip the script in our mind and understand it differently.
Yeah. So taking it from a mindset of, this is something I have to do.
Yes.
I know this is cliche, but taking it from something I have to do to something I have the honor to do. And this is how God has, anointed me to serve my husband in a way that nobody else can serve him, or nobody else should serve him.
Absolutely. And even, again, I even think of the way of, if there's an affair that happens, that relationship is not the same.
No.
It doesn't matter what fun and whatever the fireworks that are happening, there is a covenant between two of you.
That's right.
And no one is ever going to be able to fill that role the same way.
That's right. So that leads me to a whole nother set I wanted to talk about. I mentioned yesterday about the fact when there are two different times Paul talks about the marriage bed and how it needs to be healthy and alive and active. Yeah. But both times Paul says that it's so that you both maintain sexual purity. And I think that's so fascinating to me, that the apostle, and he wasn't married, but what he was doing is he was talking to the church at Corinth and other places where he saw the craziness going on. Right. And so he was looking at families and he was saying, you're living in a broken world. You're living in a sexually perverse world. Yeah. Do this. Make sure this element of your marriage is taken care of.
Right.
Not for this, that, the other, so that you will remain sexually pure. And I think we can miss that, dude.
Yeah. And
I think sometimes if we're not careful, what I can do is I can say, well, Joy's sexual purity rests on her shoulders. And you can say the same is true about me. And to some degree, that is absolutely true.
Right.
I make all my own decisions, right? Nobody makes them for me.
Right.
I make my decisions. I have to own that and take responsibility. But at the same time, Paul said, I have a duty, I have a responsibility to make sure that your needs are met, so that if you ever do go awry, it's not on me. Right? And so I think that it's really interesting to me that Paul talks about that. So I want to talk about boundaries in the sense of not what can we do in a sexual relationship, but how do we guard our sexual relationship? So I want to talk about things like what it looks like with coworkers. I want to talk about pornography. I want to talk about a lot of different things. So I'm going to let you pick one, and we'll just jump right into it.
Okay, so I think we could stay here for a few minutes because there's a lot of things to unpack here. So in regards to friendships, so I think this is pretty general. I would say it applies to us, and this is how we do this, but I would say it's pretty safe. We could tell everybody to follow suit. So inside of marriage, you don't have friends who are females that I don't know. But even beyond that, you don't have friends who are females that you text just one-on-one. Right. I think it opens up doors that you don't want to walk through. Right. No one starts doing something impure. Typically, they don't do something impure out of the first step. It's almost like you talk to someone, you text someone, you DM someone. Oh, that was funny. Oh, that joke happened. It's just the thing that continues to go. So we just have decided we don't do that. Yeah. There are lots of things that go with that. You don't ride with anybody of the opposite sex alone. I as well don't do that. You have meetings with people. You don't have people in your office with a closed door that are the opposite sex. I think that's to honor me, but I think that's also to protect you.
Absolutely.
Because we are human. And so,
and I'm not an idiot.
Right. Yes. But again, it has to be an intentional thing. Yeah. So, I have the privilege to come up to your office whenever I want to, but everyone doesn't have that privilege. So I think you have to create those boundaries yourself. If your spouse never comes to your workplace, you can create a whole situation there.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And so if you guys set up those safeguards, really is what it is. Yeah. I mean, accountability, yes, but it's really safeguards.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's keeping your marriage in those rails. And so that's just something that we have decided to do. We also, with our phones, you have full access to my phone, my computer, anything that I have that could be password locked down or I just interact with, we have full access. Yeah. And that's because I shouldn't have anything to hide.
Right. Yeah. And I think when you start talking about the work world, I think the statistics are off the charts. Most affairs do not happen. We think, they start at the gym or they start here. Most start at work, right? Some start at church. Yeah. And I think you're right. It begins with something innocent. Yeah. And then somebody says something that's kind of funny and you laugh a little too long.
Right.
You're thinking about them a little too much. You start to talk a little too deep, right? Your hugs last a little longer than they used to or they should. And so things just evolve very, very quickly. Yeah. The fact is that most people think that they are stronger than what they actually are.
Right.
And so they allow themselves to go further than they would allow their son or daughter to go.
Thinking, I'll cut that off.
I can handle this. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And they're foolish. Right. That is the definition of a fool, is when you think you are stronger than what you are. And I think our society fosters secrecy. Mm-hmm. I think we foster secrecy. That's why you got all these sub accounts and people will create alter egos. And then you've got, DMs, which are very private. Yeah. Texts are private, maybe just not as private. You've got all these things that fuel secrecy. Yeah. And there are people that think they can handle it and you just can't.
Yeah, and the social media world in general sets us up to fail. Yeah. I mean, even text, you can delete right off your phone. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they're not setting us up for success. No. It's just basically how we steward that and what we're doing with it. So I don't have my phone on me, but I could pull up right now, and you don't even know this, but like I think it's like the 28th of the month, it has marriage check-in. It's on my personal calendar. It's not on our shared. And that's where I have to own up and I have to go, I need to check in and see if he's okay. And let me explain. I have a friend and not here, but she found out that her husband was watching pornography. And she knew it, but she had determined she was not asking him because she did not want to know the answer.
Wow.
And I think that is so dangerous. Because even without knowing I think it's such a great checkpoint to say, are you okay? Like, are we okay? Are we okay? There are ways to do it. But I mean, if you have to head on say, hey, have you like watched anything that you think is inappropriate or that you should tell me about? Or were you thinking some things like, again, not like we were just talking about this today, not if someone walks by and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a really attractive woman, that thought, and then you ping it out of your brain. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking if you have had lustful thoughts or if you have indulged in something, those are the times. And you get the chance to talk to me about it or to not. But again, that was on me to do the asking. And now it's on you to do the answering. And I've done my due diligence. And then at that point, you get to live with whatever you answer to me. But I think so oftentimes, especially women, are scared to ask the questions because we don't want to know the answers because then you do sometimes have to deal with the answers that you get. But I'm going to tell you right now, it is so much better to know and to deal with it. And because sometimes you're cutting it off at the front end instead of letting things foster or continue and then to get into a full blown, my house is on fire. And so, but if you had asked and done that tune up and that checkup way back here, even though it does not feel good, because we live in a world that is inundated with all of this stuff. And so I think it's beneficial to ask. I'm not accusing you. I'm not coming at you going, can I see your phone? I want to see who you're talking to. It's no like.
But if you did, that would be okay.
Right. I mean, yes.
But I understand it. It's about the heart.
Yes, it is absolutely. And again, there's a right way, a right time, a wrong way. If something just happened or like something was awkward, you probably don't want to ask at that moment. But it has just become such an important thing to me that I thought, okay, once a month, I'm going to add it onto my calendar and I'm going to ask and just make sure.
Yeah. And I think that's also a way of serving your spouse.
Yes.
It's so sad to me to hear that a lady wouldn't want to know the answer. I understand it.
Yeah.
But it's so sad to me. But in that moment, so a wife has a number of ways that she can process that. She can go through it, I'm a victim. She can go through it sticking her head in the sand as an ostrich, or she can, be a bulldozer and take it head on. But the fact is that in some ways, if she will address it, it may be saving him, which I know we don't like to look at the guilty party as somebody who needs to be saved. We're like, well, he just shouldn't be looking at porn. But what she's doing as his helpmate by asking those questions may be cutting it off before it gets too serious. And so I think that those questions, and listen, those questions go both ways. Yeah. There have been times where I have asked, I remember specifically years ago, there was a person that I thought was being flirtatious with you, and I noticed it more than once.
Right.
And I remember feeling like I'm not sure if I need to go like attack this man or if I need to sit down and have a conversation with Joy. Yeah. And so what I decided to do is I went and I asked you, have you noticed this? Do you have feelings? And the answers were no. Thankfully, but I'm just saying, like, I gave you the opportunity to be honest with me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know, like, are you even picking up on this? Right. And sometimes for men and women, you can be oblivious. There can be somebody who's like pursuing you and you're just like, I had no idea. But the fact is, I wanted to know. And I didn't just want to know, do you know this? I didn't want to go into a jealous rage and fit and all this. I wanted to know, do you notice this? And are you reciprocating? Are you allowing this in your life? And in that way, I was serving me as a man, but I was serving you as my wife, and I was serving our marriage. Yes. And that's a difficult thing to do. It's hard for a man not to fly off the freaking handle. Right. When he feels like something like that's happening.
And absolutely. It wasn't on my radar. Right. And so it was a help to me to be like, oh, actually,
I need to be aware.
You might be right. Yeah. And I think that at times that's the way the Lord has wired us as the helpmate, is to see those things before you get entrenched. And so for us, the way that we operate is that if I have a question about someone, or if I feel like a female may have a different agenda than what is pure, if they are coming to get prayer from you a little too often, or you know what I'm saying, like your spidey senses go off sometimes, right? And so I think that is me helping you by going, hey, I really don't know that this is healthy. Like, you may need to set up a boundary. And again, you may not ever see it, but we have the relationship where, like, if that is the case, even if you don't see it, then it's already like, oh, my guard is double up. Right. Let's double down. Right. So like where the typical boundary might be here, your boundary goes up here because I was feeling uncomfortable.
Yep.
Now, we, again, like in our maturity and throughout age, like you can't do that with every female that walks by. I can't
Right,
tell you,
right,
oh, well,
right.
I feel weird about that. And then like you have no, there, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right,
you
right,
can
right.
abuse it. But I think that if you really lean in and there is a true, like there's a check with one of you, it doesn't matter if it's both of you, but if there's a check with one of you, then both of you need to be on guard.
Yeah. So I would say at the end of the day, so much of the health of a sexual relationship comes back to communication. It's a key cornerstone, and you've got to have the conversation. You've got to do it well.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
All right,
I'm
let's
just kidding.
go.
No, I'm just kidding.
Wow,
I mean,
that was impressive. I like that.
just kidding. No, we gotta cut that.
No, we are not cutting that. We are not cutting that. But truly, you just gotta talk about it, and it is uncomfortable. But don't give up the fight. It's like you said earlier. Like it's a barrier. It's so uncomfortable. But once you get in the groove, it becomes a little more natural and not as uncomfortable. So have the conversation. Which ironically, next week we're focusing on communication. Right?
Yes. So come back with us next week, and we're gonna have some other people that we really love.
It won't just be us.
It won't just be us next week. And we're going to talk about communication.
Yeah,
so it's going to be great.
For sure. So thanks for being with us. Let's pray, and we look forward to being back with you next week. Father, we are so grateful today for the gift of marriage. We're grateful for the gift of sex and all that it means to us. You give us children, and you give us pleasure, and we're so grateful for all of those things. My prayer today, God, is that you will bless every married couple that is listening to this today, that not only their sexual love, but their covenant love and their friendship love would be strengthened in the days to come. I pray for courage, and I pray for honesty. But as much of anything, Father, I pray for understanding of one another. May we understand each other so that we can love each other better. And so, Father, I pray for your help and your blessing over every couple. And we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.